Hello bookish friends and welcome to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kathleen and here we talk about all things bookish, and today is no exception because we are diving into my Amazon First Reads reading vlog where I will be reading one of the Amazon First Read selections. If you're not familiar with the Amazon First Reads selection thing, this is basically something that is offered to Prime members where you are given a selection of about, I think, 7 books, or it can actually vary per month. You select one of these new release titles that you will be reading before they are properly released the next month, as you get early access to that. And this month I decided to select Stars Align by Melissa De La Cruz. So in this story, we are following 3 young women in the early 2000s that have risen to fame due to their success on a show that I do believe is very similar to something that we grew up with, the Mickey Mouse Club. They have reached success with this, but there is this one fateful event that kind of dissolves their success and kind of derails their success, as each of these girls are going through things that are derailing them on the path of fame and success, and they're in the entertainment industry that they are wanting and that they are desiring, and they're trying to overcome all these different struggles and obstacles. I do believe one of the girls, Miranda, is struggling with addiction. We have Jermaine, who is struggling under the intense pressures and expectations of her family. And we have Cicely, who is also kind of like having a tug of war with her family as they have kind of made her the cash cow. And she's struggling under the kind of intense pressure of that. So we are seeing these girls go through these trials and tribulations in that season. And we're also following up with them as 10 years later, they reconnect and they reflect on probably the most successful thing in their life is their friendship with each other. So we are exploring this dynamic within this story. And I am about 21% into this, and so far I am actually surprisingly very hooked. It really did seem to grab my attention. I am immediately like into this story, into this vibe, and find these girls to be intensely interesting. I don't know if it's because it's something that's set kind of in the early 2000s, and as me being an elder millennial, that was like my heyday, but it's fascinating. We get this story told in multi-POVs, so we see both Miranda's, Jermaine's, and Cicely's POV, and we are seeing events happening. So far in this story, we are seeing Miranda as she is entering into rehab and as she's trying to work to overcome her addiction. And we see her also, after being released from rehab, trying to work on getting back to renewing her career. She's given me a lot of these Lindsay Lohan vibes, if you remember Lindsay Lohan and kind of her struggles with addiction, and then trying to like have a resurgence in her career or have a comeback in her career. And then we're following Jermaine, Saint Germain Chang, who is with an already successful and I would say well-off, wealthy family who owns this hotel chain. They have these expectations for Jermaine to kind of settle into domesticity, where she marries a well-off, well-to-do man, and she kind of slinks off into like a socialite life as doing like things like maybe perhaps giving back and going to different charity events and doing that kind of thing, and avoiding the public eye and not pursuing her dreams of being a dancer and like pursuing entertainment, but being more down to earth and fulfilling her obligations in the family to support the growth of their brand and the growth of their hotel chain. And that's kind of what she's expected to do, and she feels like her life has no purpose. She feels I feel like cut off from like her friends and from her passions and from what she wants to do, and that she's just living like a shell of a life. We're also seeing Cicely as she has become her family's cash cow. Everyone has a role in the family business, which is show business, and making her be as the most successful singer, songwriter that she can be. She finds herself going on tour and doing all this work, and we meet her as she's just like pounding it out on the treadmill, and as she's thinking about all these responsibilities that she has to kind of work through and that she has to fulfill, and all these obligations, so that she can make sure that her family is successful and that they're set up and that they have the money and the means and the wealth to live the lifestyle that they have become accustomed to, and the lifestyle that they want to kind of like maintain, and maybe even make some moves to gain and access more. And we see her kind of navigating and dealing with that, as she herself feels like she is not loved. She's feeling a little bit, I feel like in her story, we see that she wants to be loved and to have a relationship. She's a very romantic girl at heart, and she is just pursuing all these different people. And we see her kind of going through that journey of just being in love with love and it never working out for her, and her not being able to find the guys that actually give her the time of day or that are actually serious about her. And we see her navigating through that so far. All this has been really interesting, really juicy. In a little bit, I'm gonna dive back into it and get some more pages read. It is a perfect day because it's a very gloomy, kind of humid day. So I think this is the perfect day to just chill out at home, do some reading and relax, as it's Saturday. So that is what I plan on doing. And I will get back with you guys in the next clip. Friends, so I'm popping in with a little update. I am about 60% of my way through When Stars Align. I have ambivalent feelings. So there's a part of me that I empathize greatly with these young girls and kind of the situations that they're going through, their struggles with life, their struggles with the different things that they're going through in their particular like phase of life that they're in. I think the person that I probably not relate to, but that I empathize the most with is Jermaine. Cicely and Miranda, I kind of empathize with them, but I don't know. I think the thing that is like really challenging for me and that I'm having to continually remind myself is that these are young girls. So we're following them from their heyday as like teen stars and super famous, and we're kind of seeing what happens in their life following kind of their descent from fame and the ups and downs that they have within their respective kind of careers and their pursuits, and what is happening with their life and how they're struggling with their identity and coming to terms with who they want to be in their life and settling into that. And as we are following them, they make some very interesting choices and decisions. And I'm just really struggling with some of these choices and decisions and thought processes that they're kind of like going through and the way they're thinking things through. And that's what I'm struggling with. I'm trying to keep in mind that these are younger girls and that they're, you know, young adult women, and they're not going to be the brightest, they're not going to make the best decisions, but at the same time, it's really, and also I'm trying to keep in mind that I think that from what I'm noticing with a couple of these storylines is that the author Melissa De La Cruz was pulling inspiration from actual like 2000s pop stars. I can see a lot of inspiration when it comes to Cicely's story, that she draws upon Britney Spears and a lot of her experience that she went through as a famous pop superstar. And her storyline is closely mimicking Britney's own journey. And also with Miranda, I am kind of noticing that she's perhaps drawing some inspiration when it comes to Miranda, kind of from like the Lindsay Lohan, kind of Paris Hilton story. I'm seeing some influences in that storyline. And while we get, I guess, some great, I don't even want to say we're getting great commentary about these young women and what they're going through. It's just, I guess, a parallel that you could draw to our actual society, our real world parallel that you can draw in regards to these women. So I'm not really seeing any great commentary, any great thing being said about that. So yeah, I don't know. I just have like these ambivalent little feelings about the characters in the storyline. I'm still compelled and wanting to read the story. I'm not saying that I'm not interested in finishing it, or that I want to DNF, or that I'm not liking the story. It's just, it can be a little grating because their decision making and their thought process it's wild. Yeah, that's where I kind of am at now, needing to spend some time digging into the story, getting into it and getting further into that I can complete this book. So yeah, hopefully the next time that I see you, it'll be me giving my wrap up on this book, or I will at least be at maybe 80% and getting ready to finish this book. So yeah. All right, guys, so it is a little time later and I have finished When the Stars Align, and it was an experience. I've come to the conclusion that it was an experience, and I don't think this book was for me. It was definitely not for me. While I enjoyed the initial premise, and while I kind of enjoyed what the author was trying to do, the story that she was trying to craft, focusing on the early 2000s pop culture and what it was like for the music industry and in Hollywood during the time, and kind of exploring some of the damaging aspects of that, of fame and notoriety. I liked that. I enjoyed stories about that. But this to me just wasn't executed to the best of its ability. It read very much like fan fiction for Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, and Paris Hilton. And that's what it was giving. When it came to kind of building out the story, you could see how much inspiration she drew from their lives, to the point where she wasn't really kind of exploring she wasn't really exploring and delving into these topics and making them her own and kind of crafting a story around it. She was just kind of verbatim, in a sense, just reimagining it in a way that I don't feel like it was very creative. When it comes to these stories, and it just felt like a play-by-play of what these people went through, and it just read like fan fiction to me, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I would want a little bit more depth and more scope and more complexity and, you know, more exploration into the themes that she's pitching in this premise, and that wasn't there. The characterization was painfully weak. There was very little depth to these characters, very little complexity. I could not, and I struggled with trying to relate to these characters, and not necessarily relate. That is the wrong word, because I don't read to relate to characters. I read to like see it from perspective and understand. But I was finding it hard to care. That's the better word. I was finding it hard to care about these characters and to empathize with their stories and their situations, because she kept regurgitating and kept repeating the same kind of like angle and the kind of storyline over and over again. So it became very redundant, where you felt like they were just stuck and stagnant in this same situation that seemed to keep cropping up over and over again. And that wasn't interesting to read, because it felt like the character was stuck and stagnant in a tired storyline. And that is when I kind of began to lose interest. Also, I felt when it came to telling the story and expanding upon it, we got so little of what really mattered. We didn't really see their growth and their evolution and their progression as characters. We only saw like bits and clips of things, and we were mostly given highlights or we were told what they did off page, but we didn't get to really see it and witness this and allow her to build and create these scenes that allows you, the reader, to really connect more with the character and to see more of these themes and the things that she's trying to like talk about and explore played out with this story. And that was frustrating. And also I felt like everything was melodramatic, and it felt like this low budget soap opera, and I didn't like that. It was not entertaining. I didn't enjoy it. It could have been better executed. In all honesty, I felt like the story could have been better executed to really explore these topics and these dynamics, and to really go deep into these things and make it a really well-rounded and enjoyable story. However, just because this book isn't for me does not mean that this book may not work for you. I think that if you are new to reading contemporary women's fiction, this would be a good book to start with. If you are wanting a story that's a bit more superficial, a bit more easy to see and recognize and kind of understand the themes and the concepts this author is trying to explore, this would be ideal. If you're new to reading, I think this would also be an ideal book for someone who is new to reading. If you are a person that loves drama, loves and thrives on like gossip and kind of like, you know, Laguna Beach kind of era, and you're looking for those kind of vibes, this would be right up your alley and you would eat this up. But if you're a person that wants more complexity to your storytelling, you want more depth from your characters, you want more consistencies, and you want more storytelling and building up of the story within the plot, this may not be the book for you. I landed on a 2-star for this book. So that is all for this Amazon First Reads reading vlog. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you next month when we have our next Amazon Reads reading vlog and we talk about that month's pick. Until next time, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!